What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Venus in Leo in the second house. And look at Venus bringing in the money. Now, when you talk about that lovely Venus, the nature of Venus is to bring things together, to unionize and to attract and to harmonize. Venus brings about this sense of just how Venus for me is like how you make the journey more pleasurable. Whether that be through, Venus is, it can be associated with the senses. So we're talking about through foods, through music, through the sound of laughter, just like all of those really kind of pleasant Venusian things. Yeah, that's what Venus is. Those things that we love, that we just want to nurture in our lives. And Venus too, there's a creative aspect to Venus as well, a real refined taste to Venus. So that's another real kind of expression there. And one thing too, to really pay attention to, especially if you have a night chart. Venus is going to be your go-to benefic. It's going to be Venus is at its most beneficence or most beneficent in the night chart. Let's see if I can talk. But yeah, so that's something to pay attention to as well. But then when we talk about Leo, Leo is ruled by the sun, and they are the fixed fire sign, and they are active or yang in nature. What I've been thinking about Leo lately, and I think that one key word I think with Leo is consistency. I find they're just like the sun. Just as the sun is going to rise and set, Leo, where they put their energy into, I find when it really lights them up, they will do that thing. There's a real stamina and a real endurance and a persistency with Leo, and it can, again, a consistency with Leo. I think that that's something where you can count on Leo to be there, to be that light, to be that beacon, and I think that that's just something too with Leo. I like to think of them as an oven. What you put into that energy, what's fueling that, and then what's coming out. So that's something I always think to like with Leo, but that does lead to this sense of when you're in that state of true will, with Leo, I mean, you just shine bright, and it's just this warm, generous energy I think that Leo energy can give. And then when you talk about the second house, this in ancient astrology was known as the gates of Hades. Yeah, I was doing a lot. And it's one of these succeeding houses. And some of the themes that it's going to cover deal with like your finances, your livelihood, and just like your possessions in general. And these are more kind of like your personal ones. So when we're working with this placement, a couple of things to consider. One, you'd have a Cancer rising by whole sign, and you'd want to look to the sun because the sun's going to be responsible and going to import the themes of this house to wherever it's located. And then Venus is going to be responsible for, is going to import the themes of the fourth house, which deals with like your parents, your family, your home. And then the 11th house to this house, which deals with like your friends, your groups, hopes, alliances, benefactors, patrons, things like that. So one thing that I would talk about with this, whether you have a night or a day chart, Venus is bringing in the resources. And so one thing that I would definitely be thinking about with this is, one, does your home space and where you live, does that support your dreams as far as like what you want to create, where you want to put your energy into? For example, if you want to be a farmer where it's possible, it might be a little bit harder to do that in the city when if you don't have a lot of land to work with, whereas opposed to if you live in the country. So that may be something to think about, how your environment is going to be supporting your livelihood. And that would be something too where if you're thinking about, let's say, thinking about your space, maybe you're not where you want to be yet. That's the thing I think with Venus and Leo. I think, again, if you put your energy towards that, Venus will attract those things. So let's say if you have a dreams of a mansion. Okay, while you're working up towards that mansion, what would you keep in that? Okay, let's go ahead and get that nice couch. Let's go ahead and get the queen size bed and the sheets with the high thread count. Be a little bougie. It's Venus. But just living in that space and doing that stuff consistently, that's how how you attract those things. And that's going to deal with anything. If you want to make a bunch of money, then what do you need to be doing on a day by day basis in order to get that money? You're thinking from sun up to sundown. What are you doing? Because this is a more active energy with Venus. This is not just Venus just receiving things, but when you make those connections and form those unions, Venus will hold that. And I would think with Venus ruling the 11th house, this could bring a lot of support from like patrons, benefactors, things like that. So don't be afraid to network, to put yourself out there. Maybe you might find some support, maybe getting some, when it comes with the parents, or maybe family, they may be able to connect you with different people who need your service, whatever that might be. Some services, that I would even think about ways that maybe you can make your livelihood. I would think even like a property manager, for example, that would be a really great when you're managing like, huge groups of people in a complex, you're providing them homes. That I could see this in a place of like in interior designer. I think that would be a neat manifestation. Architect, I could see some kind of like construction, maybe like landscaping. Maybe you're just like renting stuff out, or maybe you happen to where you have a friend and you're taking care of their place possibly or something, or maybe doing something where you have, some kind of skill. Maybe you do like carpentry, or maybe you do something with like flooring, or that might be the same thing. Or maybe do something with like roofing or plumbing, whatever that might look like. Having some kind of means, I think, or some sort of like handy skills, I think would be a useful one for this, even just to get just like a little side income. I think that could be. Who doesn't like a little like money from multiple places, and then you get a little more flexibility with your time. Spend time with friends, spend time with family. But that would be another thing too. Just thinking about how your friends and family kind of share in what you bring to the table. Not necessarily what they're bringing in. That's more kind of eighth house things. But this is more so, just kind of pay attention to the people that you attract. And it's just like, is this the groups that I want to be involved with? Is this this is how I want my family to be connected, because those are going to be part of your livelihood. They're going to bring in that support. And when things are harmonious in the family, when things are feeling harmonious in the groups, then again, that's bringing connections for everyone. It's just like the resources are just flowing. But invest I think in some home space. I think that would be, whether it's like, owning, your own apartment, or, maybe it's renting, owning a condo, getting a home, whatever that's looking like, having some sort of roots. I think that would be, I think that would be really nice. And again, Venus, the hell out of it. Make it something that it is a reflection of who you are, and that it really kind of shows through there. But yeah, and I think that just whatever you choose to do, with yourself, as far as like your however you're making your resources, just make sure it's something that you enjoy, and I would say that to like everyone, obviously, but especially for this, for this placement. And yeah, I would say, maybe if the sun maybe isn't in a great place, or maybe Venus is received, because that might be something too, where maybe if you're seeing something where Venus should indicate good resources, but maybe you've noticed that there's been challenges, that would be something where look to the condition of the sun. That's where we look to the ruler of that, and see how the sun is doing. Is it being beat up by the malefics, or is Venus receiving any sort of like harsh aspects from things? Because that may be where it starts off well, but then maybe something squanders that, and then just getting eyes on what is that sort of hindrances, so we can work a little bit more into that. Because again, I do think that Venus would deliver, but if with the succeeding houses too, they're the ones I find that they take a little more time to build, but once they got a steady flow, especially I think with the fixed sign being there, it'll flow really nice, So yeah, those would be just some kind of just like some base things that I would talk about with someone with this placement. You definitely need the whole chart to get a better picture of this, to see how this is coming up for you. But if you have this placement or know someone who's worked with this placement, down in the comment section, tell us how this has manifested for you. Hopefully Venus has been, connecting, and maybe found that support in like family and friends and things like that. That would be, I think, another, again, really kind of nice manifestation of that. But yeah, tell us how that story is looking. And if you want to explore this, this placement a lot more, in the rest of your chart, down in the description box, I'm having some retrograde shenanigans come up. So I'm getting the where you can book a consultation with me just directly through a calendar link. But if you have any questions about, if that's not up yet, if you reach out to me an email and we can set up a consultation there, you can ask me any kind of questions that you have as far as like what we would cover during the thing. So prices and all that good stuff. But also too, there's a couple links for if you want to watch the lunar shenanigans. That's going to be just talks about the moon, the astrology of the moon, what sign it's in, phase it's in, aspects that it's forming when they reach their peak, and when the moon happens to go void of course. And then we talk about the other one is the Celestial News Weekly, which talks about where the sun is actually transiting and the rest of the classical planets are, when how what aspects are forming, what signs are going to be most affected, and how to work with those energies. And so, but yeah, that's, and you know what? Yeah, that's all I got for you there. So until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof, and I will catch you on the next one later.